G'day everyone, this is RisingFunGaming. Welcome to another Monster Hunter World Beta Play Diary. This time around we're taking on Diablos with a heavy bowgun, or HBG for short. This particular one is the Bone Shooter, I believe it was called. The HBG was the only weapon class in the beta which provided us with two different options. This particular one has a special ammo called the Huibin Snipe, and the other one that was available had a special ammo type called Huibin Heart. The Huibin Heart is sort of like a Gatling type ammo. You pull it out and you just spray and pray. Well, you don't really have to do much pray. There's quite a bit of control over it and not a lot of recoil or anything silly like that. It's just spray, no pray. Very delicious. Also delicious is the Huibin Snipe. It's something that requires you to go prone before shooting a piercing shot into it, at which point that shot lodges and explodes. On that particular occasion we didn't do good damage because the angle of entry was not very optimal. We will see throughout the hunt that we improve on that angle and we get many more initial piercing shots and subsequent explosive shots in, so look forward to seeing them. Okay, being used now is the newly branded crag shot, now called sticky ammo. It's a lot more descriptive and I like the fact that they've called it sticky ammo. It makes immediate sense to me and I believe it should do to newer hunters rather than crag, which I believe has always been a little bit too, I don't know, obscure a meaning. Crag shot, it doesn't really describe much to me unless it's some sort of, I don't know, gunning ammo term in the real world that I've never heard about. Something like that. Anyway, HBG in Monster Hunter World versus previous incarnations of this game. It's feeling a lot better. Not only can you move when you are gunning, which is beautiful, just the simple act of moving your aiming reticule around the map is just, it's beautifully smooth. It's the way that it always should have been. In previous games, aiming has always felt very, what's the word? Jaunty, is that the word? Very touchy. You just touch it and it moves a long way and just, there's no smoothness to it like it is in this game. It's just, it's beautiful and I'm really loving it. Now, I'm one of the people that really do enjoy the damage numbers. Not everyone does, and good thing Capcom had the foresight to have the option to turn those off. But even though I do a fair bit of gunning, I've found it very, very hard to memorize the effectiveness, well, pretty much of any damage type. Oh, here's a good Huibin Snipe. That's a good Huibin Snipe. We can see rather than the 2 entry hits and 2 explosive hits that we got in the initial one, we got like 5 or 6 of both types, which is good. Ooh, just missing that tail. Anyway, as I was talking about those damage numbers, I don't generally have a good working memory of exactly where shot type damage does the best on any one monster. The susceptibility of various body parts will change between monsters, and it's great to have this immediate numerical feedback. For those that haven't realized already, pretty much your neutral white colored numbers are depicting, I guess, just average, not especially effective damage. Or it's depicting things like poison, as we see here, these 8s popping up. But it seems as though if you hit weak spots, or just if you're otherwise being effective, let's just chuck a blanket over that, it's going to give you some orange numbers. So when you forget where to shoot it, always experiment and look for those numbers. The game's environment seems to provide many useful things. Interacting with things like the flash bugs are of obvious utility. It's always nice to have those guys to shoot and set off in the face of an advancing monster. And our Diablos friend is migrating now. He's going off to this little, I guess you'd call it a little table, a little high area up here where his beloved cactus is. He's a herbivorous monster, so he will go to eat his cacti when he's feeling a little bit tired. Try to gain a little bit of stamina. But in the act of doing so, it provides us an opportunity to place a trap under him or bomb him or do whatever nefarious deeds that you'd like to do. Nom nom. Must have some pretty heavy duty calluses in his mouth if he can chew through those cacti. It's very impressive. Here we are with the Wyvern ammo. We try to use as many different ammo types as possible, not only just to show them off, show off their sound, show off their looks, show off their damage numbers, show off their effectiveness against this particular monster. It's always good fun. But we learned that it hits at least twice, and one of those hits does significantly more damage than the other. Not really savvy with the Wyvern ammo type to really know why that's the case. Whoosh, whoosh. Slicing ammo, always so satisfying, and it's good for those people that like to solo with bowguns. You've always got the slicing ammo. You've always got that option to cut off the tail for those calves. You don't need a blade master in there if you don't want. Something very, very interesting that happened there was the fact that the slicing shot embedded tail of the Diablos was put in a position over our little deployable flash bug cage there, which in turn activated it. So it just goes to show that things like embedded shots like that, and I'm assuming probably the sticky ammo as well, have environmental interactions, or at the very least interactions with deployable items. So very, very interesting to note. Now, both the HBGs, I'm going to die, yep. Both the HBGs in the beta had the shield attached. Now, for the shield to work, it gives you something called auto guard, and if you're standing still facing a monster, and more importantly facing its attack, it should automatically block for you at the expense of a little bit of chip damage. But the caveat there is, if you've just taken an action, there's a certain amount of time that you need to finish, I guess, the animation of your action. I don't know if there's a little bit of time after that as well, before it can be utilized, before your auto guard can actually work. And I think we're right on the precipice, we're right on the borderline of it being able to work, but unlucky not to get it. Thankfully, this game, upon being carted, upon being knocked out, well, you've always got this hilarious thing where the palicos kind of come out on a cart and they wheel you to the camp, and that's why it's a so-called cart. It's what Monster Hunter fans call that. It's a cart. You've carted. But thankfully in this game, it's when you cart, you get transported to the nearest camp. As there's multiple camps, sort of upwards of 4 or 5 in my experience from the different maps we've seen. Yeah, you get transported to the nearest one, and as we could see, we come out of there and we're upon the monster quick smart. Not a lot of running around like a chook with its proverbial head chopped off, which I really, really like. It's one of those things in the older games, you cart and you're sent back to the start. There's only one camp, and sometimes it can require like anywhere up from 30 seconds to like 2 to 3 minutes of running just to get back to the action, which really, really throws the tempo of the match. And I don't know, sometimes I feel like it can inspire people to just not rage quit, but just quit, because they couldn't be bothered really. So that's really nice. I think at this point we get a visitor coming pretty soon, so look out for him. Almost through our slicing ammo, and finally getting that tail. Very, very satisfying. We would carve it if we got to keep the calves, but it's the beta, we do not get to keep the calves, so why bother? Why put yourself in that sitch? So we do have a Baroth friend here. I think I decided to put sticky ammo here because I wanted to see if the explosions also hit the barrel. It's kind of one thing that I'd love to see. The explosions proccing and hitting both monsters at the same time, that'd be great. Especially if you set it up for a simultaneous kill, wouldn't that be special? Really love these ant hills around the place. It's very, very cool when they get knocked down. All the ants scatter and run. They're sizable ants too. I thought we had big ants in Australia, the meat ants and stuff like that, but I think they're outclassed by the ones in Monster Hunter World, in the new continent. They're on steroids out here, man. Absolutely ridiculous. For those who don't know, one little tactic you can do against charging monsters such as these two is position yourself in front of things like those big ant hills when they're fully formed, and if the monster charges it, they'll kind of either knock themselves out or they'll lodge themselves in it, like the Diablos will lodge himself in because he's got the horns. But I believe I also saw him knock himself out and down. I'm not sure if he didn't have horns at that point when that happened, but that was interesting. Baroth usually just knocks himself down, which is pretty funny. Okay, going for another Huibin Snipe. How many shots can we get? Looks like 5 or 6. Yeah, about 5, I think. Of embedding and explosive. I think the old veterans used to say you used to do spread shot on the tail. Don't know if they've changed the damage susceptibility to spread shot. I'm probably just imagining things, but I always thought that you had to shoot the tip of the tail with spread or something, but I think I got my wires crossed there because I did experiment with it, and it being the tip of the tail, it doesn't do much damage there usually, at least in this game. We got a nice little flash there to set off. The palicos have generally been pretty good in terms of their placement of the flash bug cages. More often than not, they've been put in a position where I'd like them, which kind of goes against the tradition. They're supposed to be really dumb and put traps and the like in the most inconvenient spots. Let's see if the AI of this newer engine improves them to that end. Okay, we got our boy pretty hurt. He's smarting. As we are past the 10-minute mark, we can re-eat if we would like to, or eat again. Just top ourselves up on the items that we've used. So convenient to have this camp. So convenient. Going into your tent. Love it. Don't know how I feel about the multiple eating though. Not sure how that works in the full version game too. I'd assume that it's a 50-minute hunt, and I would also assume that the food effects would expire after half of the hunt, so 25 minutes. Perhaps that's why it's after 10 minutes in these 20-minute hunts for the beta. Time will tell. We will find out what the actual mechanic is there, and I'm not sure if there's any difference between the timing, or sorry, the duration of food effects when you eat in town before going out on these maps versus when you eat out in the map for the first time. A few questions that I'd like to have an answer for myself. But if I have to eat any more than twice out in the in a typical 50-minute hunt, I don't think I'd enjoy that, to be honest. Alright, going over to the cluster bombs. It's really cool. We've got this parabolic flight pattern to them now. You used to shoot them straight at the monster, at which point it would contact and divide into many different explosive bombs there. But it's cool now, it's more of a, I guess, a mortar, more of a game of artillery. And again, like a lot of the aiming and the gunning in this game, it's very, very intuitive on how to do so. You just use the left stick forward and back to choose your range. And I guess the best option to kind of go for the back. Not the best Huibin Snipe there, admittedly, Mr. RFK. Ouch. So yeah, it was fun kind of experimenting with all the different shot types, figuring out what was the most useful. What I like, probably the one that I like the most, honestly, is just good old humble slicing shot. It has the cutting utility for tails, but it doesn't sacrifice DPS. It does quite a lot of damage. Really, really good. Feeling comfortable on where to actually land these piercing shots. The idea is to get it plumb down the center of the tail. It's kind of easy to think of in theory, but to achieve in practice sometimes not so much. It's also nice that on the aiming reticule you've got this out of range warning coming up, and I believe that's telling you about your critical distance. Now, for those who don't know, it's something called critical distance for gunning weapons. Basically, the different shot types have their different optimal effective distance of fire. So for example, your spread shot, which is basically, you know, like a shotgun, you want to get up nice, close and personal to be most effective, whereas other shot types such as pierce can be effective from longer distances. A little bit confusing though, it says I don't know, it kind of reads as it's going to be a 0 effect, but it's just a less optimal effect, I guess you'd say. One thing I don't like about the monster's behavior is the fact that they will lay down to sleep despite the presence of the hunter, which is something that they don't usually do in previous games, and it doesn't make sense to me whatsoever. They should be fighting for their life. I assume they're intelligent enough to try and save themselves, and just taking a kip in the presence of a hunter doesn't seem to be the best idea to that aid. Our final Huibin Snipe, thankfully, is probably the best one that we do. That was very, very good. Quite a few ripples in through the body there, and some lovely explosions to finish him off. Okay, so that's going to do for the Heavy Bowgun vs Diablos video. Quite the fun weapon and quite the fun demo. They've given us quite a bit to do, and I'm very, very thankful that we had 3 days to play it, and we will get a further 4 to 5 around about Christmas time as a present. So if you guys didn't get on top of it, weren't able to play it for whatever reason, we do have it coming again for all PlayStation 4 users, whether you've got PS Plus or not. So look forward to playing it over the holiday period. Till then guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.